President Trump said the United States is negotiating an arrangement to secure full access to Greenland. Joining us to discuss this is Armen Kurdian, retired U.S. Navy captain and foreign policy and national security analyst. So, Armen, good afternoon. I have a clip here with me of Trump talking about the Greenland deal. So I just want you to quickly take a look at this.
Essentially, it's total access. There's no end. There's no time limit. We're going to have total access to Greenland. We're going to have all military access that we want. So we're going to not have to pay anything other than the fact that we are building the Golden Dome.
Now, Armen, if in this deal the U.S. does not actually own Greenland, I mean, would it achieve, in your view, the national security goals the U.S. had in mind in countering China and Russia?
Well, good afternoon, Don. First of all, I would not characterize this actually as a deal. This framework is based off of the discussion he had with the NATO Secretary General. The Danish government has made very clear that they weren't necessarily part of this discussion. So whatever happens is going to require the Danes' approval and negotiation and working with them. Now, if the president doesn't own Greenland, he doesn't have to own Greenland. We just need access to certain areas, perhaps building additional bases, military enforcement, working with the native Greenlanders and the Danish government and NATO to secure the island against, to help secure the Western Hemisphere against Chinese and Russian aggression or their access to the Arctic. The NATO Secretary General agrees in principle to a lot of the things that Trump has wanted to say. But as excited as I was when we heard we had a framework of a deal, the more I kind of dialed into it, I think Trump was trying to dial it back a little bit and perhaps open up the door to some more negotiations. But there is still a very long way to go on this.
Okay, so you're saying in this framework that a strong U.S. presence in Greenland is essentially strong enough to stop China and Russia from continuing their military presence there, or even increasing it.
A strong NATO presence with the U.S. Primarily supporting, considering it is our hemisphere, would be great. Whether that includes increased port facilities on the East Coast, whether that includes additional radar facilities to identify and perhaps target incoming missiles coming over the Arctic Circle, or additional deep water ports on the East Coast, because the northern coast of Greenland is not conducive to deep water ports. It's iced over a big part of the year, and the water is just not deep enough for large ships to come in. But additional patrols or the ability to extend security through the Greenland-Iceland-Europe gap, where Russian subs come in and out to be monitored. All of these things are central to not only the U.S. security and Canadian security, but NATO security at the same time. So they're great ideas to actually go and do. And I applaud the president for wanting to make some serious progress here, because apparently in the past, some other presidents have tried to make this happen without much success. My concern or comments are on the tactics that he is using. I think a carrot approach in this sense would be a lot more effective than the stick approach he has been wielding.
Okay, so a lot still needs to be discussed. Right now, it's just a framework, as you and President Trump both said. But since we're talking about it, in terms of necessity, what does the U.S. actually need to gain in this potential agreement? What needs to be different from the current agreement, where the U.S. already has significant access to Greenland?
Well, there's access to Greenland, and then there's permanent presence in Greenland. Like I said, the ability to place a permanent radar facility there would be of great value. Whether or not interceptors on the Greenland island would be of use depends on the trajectory of missiles coming in over that area of the world. Monitoring Russian activity is very, very important. Having greater access to the Arctic. Remember, the United States builds 0.1% of the world's of our own maritime seagoing fleet. We don't build icebreakers here. We try, but we can't do it. Finland builds icebreakers. They're very, very good at it. A lot of other countries build ships. We don't build ships. So that partnership is also going to be very, very important in terms of shipbuilding and providing new ships that perhaps could be home ported in that part of the world. Pre-positioning other kind of logistics information, our previous logistics base that we can use in case we need to help reinforce Scandinavia, or perhaps if there's Russian activity in the north, or they're trying to exploit mineral wealth under the ice, we would be there to be able to do that as well. So, access includes economic cooperation, includes government cooperation, includes military to military cooperation. That's what access really is. And then, of course, there's the question about rare earth materials, natural resources that we could all exploit, even though that is a little bit of a harder problem, or a tougher nut to crack, considering the fact that much of Greenland is frozen over, and whether or not it would be cost effective to try to pull a lot of that out of there, especially in the northern half of the island. That may be a little bit of a challenge, but there's still other resources that we could pull out in cooperation with the native Greenlanders, and of course in cooperation with the native population.
Okay, Armen, another topic here. President Trump unveiled his new international body called the Board of Peace at the World Economic Forum. And Trump even saying it could go beyond peace in Gaza and even replace the UN. So about the UN, it's important to mention that China, which runs counter to many U.S. interests, including religious freedom and fair trade, has a lot of influence in the UN, right? So, I mean, the regime persecutes its people. They're on the UN Human Rights Council. So what are your thoughts on what President Trump said about this Board of Peace? And what could it mean for the UN?
Well, the UN doesn't have necessarily the best record of peace in the Middle East, and it is very much there's a very strong anti-Israel sentiment that runs through the UN. So, can you really blame the president for wanting to create an independent body that might not necessarily govern the area, but a forum specifically towards development, de-escalation of military involvement, removal of Iranian influence in that area? There's a lot of positive things that can be done by this sort of independent board, independent governing body in that region of the world that the UN has not been able to do. In fact, the UN has, in a lot of ways, been an obstacle to peace within the Middle East. We say, well, the UN wants peace, the UN wants peace, yet Hamas, Hezbollah, and all the proxies have been allowed to continue. And the UN, in terms of like a military force, or a force for good, is a bit of a joke. China is trying to influence all parts of the world with its Belt and Road Initiative. This is nothing new. They've been doing the same thing in the Middle East, trying to entrench themselves in a lot of these nations. A lot of these nations say, "Come on in," and then they can't pay back, and then China gets ownership of a lot of these areas, facilities that they put in. So it's very, very smart on the Chinese part. Hopefully, this board can use the United States and the European nations as more of that economic bulwark in the Middle East, because the last thing we want is a great Chinese presence or even a military presence in that region of the world.
And how do you feel about this organization managing Gaza's governance, security, and reconstruction simultaneously? Do the participating countries have unified or competing interests in the Middle East?
I'm sure they have some competing interests, but at the same time, a lot of these countries that have virtue signaled about the Palestinians over the last several decades, we'll see if they can put their money where their mouth is. At the end of the day, a lot of these countries that have a lot of oil wealth and sovereign wealth funds, they understand business. Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Oman, they understand what it means to invest and create jobs and basically continue to generate more wealth. And a lot of that wealth could potentially come from outside the region in terms of tourism or in terms of other businesses that are coming in and finding perhaps a workforce that could be highly trained and highly skilled in that area. Could you perhaps turn the Gaza Strip into something like the United Arab Emirates did for their region of the world in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, a financial technological center in that region of the world that people are living. A lot of expatriates go and live in that region of the world. Uh, a lot of folks remember Beirut is a beautiful city. Now, granted, that's up in Lebanon, but that whole coastal area is a very, very beautiful area. People may want to live there. People may want to develop. Uh, Imagine of all that money that Iran gave to Hamas and for bombs and terrorist activities actually went into bettering the lives of the Palestinian people in a peaceful way. So the possibilities are endless. And I certainly have a lot more, let's say at least hope that this independent board can do a better job than the UN has done in the past.
Right. I mean, it's certainly it's certainly difficult to argue against that the possibilities that are present because of this this board of peace. But thank you for speaking with us about this, Armen. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Don. Have a great day.